Hey everyone, I'm Rachel, and today on Crack Your Bible, I wanted to talk to you about Genesis 10. But, of course, before we get into Genesis 10, I was doing some studying because I wanted to make sure that I was up to speed on some certain things that I wanted to share with you. And all of a sudden, I then fell into this black hole of controversy because I found out that apparently there's this controversy where people say that Genesis 10 contradicts Genesis 11, and no. There's a lot of places in the Bible that people might see contradictions, but even I've looked at things and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going to be the thing that shakes my faith? And then when I study more into it and study both sides or whatever, all of a sudden I say, oh wait, I just didn't understand it. It's not a discrepancy. It's not a contradiction. Now I understand. But you're always going to have people out there that are going to hold certain things up and they're going to be like, see, this is a contradiction. See, the Bible's not true. It's not true. And this one is a really garbage argument because it's like, okay, have you ever read a book? It's really reaching. But you see that people will use these sort of arguments to trip up new believers or to trip up Christians who maybe aren't up to speed on those particular issues. So let's talk about it because this is a really easy thing to understand. And okay, here's the whole controversy. In Genesis 10, we have a genealogy, and we've talked about this ad nauseum why genealogies exist in the Bible, and they are always to set up a lineage of Jesus so that we know where Jesus came from, who he came through, so that we know that he is this promised seed of woman back in Genesis 3. We've talked about it in Genesis 5. Now we're going to talk about it again in Genesis 10. And we see in Genesis 10 that we have Ham, Shem, and Japheth, the three sons of Noah, and then their descendants, and then where they were dispersed out to. Because remember, once you got off Noah's Ark, you had a lot of stuff going on, and we talked about how the Ice Age would have been caused by the global flood because you would have had a significant cooling period, and when that happens, you are going to have a lot of people. Once you have people moving out and they're going their separate ways, they can go to a lot of different places because places are, even though they're separated, like Pangea broke up, there's not going to be as much water, so you start having land bridges like the Bering Strait where we have people crossing over from Asia into North America. We know this stuff happened. So the Bible is explaining where did all of the various descendants of Ham, Shem, and Japheth go to. And they describe, okay, this tribe went this way, this tribe went the other way, and they settled in this area, and then they created these people, and they now have their own languages and culture, etc. Now in Genesis 11, it talks about how everybody spoke one language, and this is where people will try to trip you up. They'll be like, oh, in Genesis 10 it says that these people all had their separate languages, but then in Genesis 11 it says that everyone spoke one language. See, this is a contradiction. I've been called a lot of things by people who don't like this channel. Oh, you're a witch. Oh, you're full of demons. Oh, you are condescending. Oh, you're a gossip monger. Whatever. It comes with the territory. I'm a very direct, incredulous person. So I'm incredulous when people are like, oh, see, this shows that the Bible is untrue. And it's like, okay, have you really never read a book? Because there is a very simple explanation for this. And this is a literary device used all the time. It's a rhetoric device that you and I use on a daily basis. And even if you're unaware of it, it's something that's very common. And this term is called prolepsis. And it's where you are assigning a modifier to something that has not happened yet when you're talking about a past event. For example, this president was born in XYZ, or my husband was born in XYZ. Well, when they were born, they were not the president, or when my husband was born, he wasn't my husband yet. But I'm telling you some extra information so that you can understand, where this story is coming from, like what I'm gearing up to tell you about. So that's called prolepsis. Now, am I saying that somebody becomes a president by birth? No, absolutely not. Nobody would even assume that. Or did I have an arranged marriage where before I was even born, I was betrothed to my husband? So that's why I say my husband was born, blah, 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 blah. No, of course not. Again, nobody thinks that. But when it comes to the Bible, all of a sudden it's like, oh, so now they speak different languages? So that's how it always was, wasn't it? And it's like, no, they all spoke one language. And chapter 10 is an overview because the Bible is not necessarily in chronological order with every book. In Genesis 10 is an overview, and Moses is giving you information about past events, and he's giving you modifiers to tell you about these specific people, even though when he starts his story, those things hadn't happened yet, but they are still all past events for Moses. And Moses is writing all of this down, not only to explain who all these people groups are and where they came from, but he's also setting the stage for the Messiah. This is where the Messiah is going to come from, and we can see that this promise back in Genesis 3, and then Noah through his descendant Shem, the Messiah is going to come out, because we need to know these things to establish, is Jesus the Messiah? And it's being established almost 1700 years before Jesus is even born. It's written down, so we know this is who the Messiah is going to come through. Where did Jesus come through? This exact line that they told us about. Just be prepared for people to be like, oh, there's so many contradictions in the Bible. No, this is not one. I'm telling you that here's all these different people. They came from these areas. Currently, they have different languages, but when they first dispersed, they all had the same language. And then in Genesis 11, we are going to pinpoint a certain time on this overview, and we're going to talk about it more in depth. That's exactly what Genesis 10 and 11 is. One's an overview. Genesis 11 is pinpointing a specific time during that overview to talk about it more in depth. Books, textbooks, just talking about things in general all the time. We do this. It's called prolepsis. So again, if anybody tells you a contradiction, just easily explain it to them and move on. So anyway, that's just something that I wanted to share with you. We'll definitely talk more about Genesis 10 in the coming weeks. And I would love for you to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.